it went straight through the planet, causing the explosion and leveling of the forest in Siberia. But I don't know if anybody ever made any confirmation on what happened on the other side of the planet when it came out.
I wouldn't want to be standing where I was at when it came out. I can tell you that. It might hurt.
It was an interesting theory, though. So it's just when it comes to right now with quantum theory, there is the suggestion that the universe is made up actually of miniature black holes that are constantly appearing and disappearing, creating what is called a quantum foam. And that's actually what I suppose the ultimate matter wouldn't be the right word, but really the ultimate framework of reality is this foam of tiny black holes that are constantly appearing and disappearing in a series of singularities.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I lost you for a second, but you're back. That's what I hate about Skype.
Well, I'm still here.
Yeah, well, I was watching my screen go like whoop, whoop, and because it updated today on me. Everything updated today about an hour before the show, and I was freaking out. Did you ever get your computer? Did you ever get your computer fixed?
It died completely, but I'm awaiting a new one. So right now I'm working on a backup computer because I always have a backup ready to go.
One of my friends came over here a couple of weeks ago in my studio, and they started saying 1, 2, 3, and they got up to 9. Then they said, "Okay, come on, do you really need so many computers?" And I go, "Well, wait a minute. I use 7 of them, sometimes 8 to do the show, because whatever I have a backup." So,
right.
Because I'm not just transmitting out through like speaker radio, for example, that app. I'm going through another app that feeds out to the radio stations. So has to be on a separate computer because it feeds out to them only. Then I have the one that does, speaker. Then I got one for Skype. I got another one for another Skype. And then I have another one for my bumper music. And I have, then I have a bunch of computers sitting next to the computers in case one goes bad, to flip it over.
Sure. Well, and, because of what happened to me, I always tell everyone, always have your files, everything that you depend on a daily basis in your computer backed up, because you just never know what could happen. The odd thing, Gary, is that I wonder if maybe I had some kind of power surge go through the house, because the same day that my computer finally decided to kick the bucket, I had several other household items, a Nito robotic vacuum, and then a couple of cordless telephones. The very next day, every one of them had dead batteries that couldn't be recharged again.
Interesting.
So, it's just I can't believe that that's a coincidence.
Well, maybe you were saying something on the radio you shouldn't have been saying. I always blame that, that. But you know what? I have battery backups, and I learned my lesson because my wife, she works for a major computer company as one of their. She runs one of their service centers, and she's an expert on like laptops and computers and all that stuff. She said, "Don't buy a cheap battery backup." So I did listen to her, and I bought a $100 one, and found out, gee, it worked. But the problem is when the power goes out, it ran the monitor and the computer for like 3 minutes, if that long. So I ended up buying one that actually. It runs 7 computers, the monitors, for about 25 minutes. So, oh, wow. I am well protected. And I had a massive last week. It was my fault. I took the vacuum cleaner and I plugged it into a cord And then it dawned on me after I popped all the circuit breakers in the house that the cord was tied into my servers.
Oh, goodness. Well, this is one of the things that we can either thank or curse Nikola Tesla, because all of the stuff that we've just been currently talking about, we can trace it back to this great 20th century inventor. But then again, he had some different ideas on how things should be powered and maintained, electronics, I mean. So rather than having to depend on plugging everything in, Tesla had the idea that we'd be able to broadcast electricity and energy either through the atmosphere or a combination of through the air or actually resonating through the planet itself. So I suppose that the people in California who unfortunately found themselves without power when California Power and Light had to turn everything off in fears that the winds would knock down the power lines and create wildfires, kind of wish that people had listened to Tesla back in his day.
I think so. I think one of these days we're going to realize that we should have done it. Here it was that he was being funded by a very wealthy person. And as soon as he kind of made the plea, hey, I want this to be free to people. Why should they have to pay for it? They pulled the funding, and that was pretty much the end of Tesla. But, when you think about this, about the grid system, and I know we're not talking about time travel, but we can be. Very simple, because it could affect us. That if we have a power surge, I thought maybe a year or two it would be out. FEMA did a report here just last week, I believe, that if the power grid system would go down, we're talking 4 to 10 years to get it up.
Right.
And you could imagine after 3 days what society would be like. I would want to be living in Nova Scotia at that point.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because you look at the ideas and writings that Tesla had on his concept on how the worldwide electrical grid system would work and how it actually turned out. He really would be just sorely disappointed. I mean, in his final decades, he was already seeing how it was developing, and he wasn't very happy. And it has not changed that much since the 1940s. The whole electrical grid system in the United States, and it's extremely vulnerable to natural disasters, and even say like solar events. Electromagnetic pulses from sunspots and solar flares, when Tesla's ideas would have circumnavigated all of those problems. And but here we are now in the 21st century, having to deal with a technology that was starting to get old in the 1940s. So there you go.
Yeah, and it scares me. It's just like some kid putting Tinker Toys together. That's how our grid system is, put together. And if it I had one guy claim, oh, you know what? If the grid system goes down, it's not going to go out all across the country. There'll be pockets. And I said, yeah, there might be pockets, but again, it's like a Christmas tree bulb. One goes out, the whole, the string of lights all go out.
Right. Oh, yes. Well, and I mean, even those pockets are dependent on the entire grid system. So, I mean, they may be able to operate for a little while, but eventually they're going to go out as well. And once everything goes out, it's like you said, it's going to take an extremely long time to get everything back up and running again. Now, I will say that you said, Gary, that we were kind of deviating from the idea of time travel, but Nikola Tesla actually had an experience, a personal experience that kind of gave him a different perspective on time and space and our reality, and possibly even the nature of the universe and how it works.
Oh yeah, wasn't he one of his plans? Wasn't it, if I remember right, trying to make a time machine?
Well, okay. Now there have been some people who have come forward and said that they were part of government experiments and projects. The one specifically, Project Pegasus is the one that I'm referring to. A lawyer from the state of Washington by the name of Andrew Saggio claimed that when he was a kid, his father actually got him involved in this government experiment that was using a kind of a combination teleportation time machine that had been developed by Nikola Tesla. Yeah, it's one of these stories that, I mean, it's great, and there's some really interesting aspects of it, and some stuff that, it makes you kind of stroke your chin and say, well, possibly that could be true, but I'm kind of wavering on the other side on whether or not this actually happened or not. But Tesla was interested in the concept, and may have. I don't think that he actually invented, at least not in this reality, invented a working time machine. I think because of his almost near-death experience, it got him thinking on the nature of reality and time space, and how it possibly could be exploited. And exploited, that's not really the right word, but how he could conduct experiments to see what actually was going on.
Oh yeah, I just wonder too. I mean, when his death happened, I mean, was it the FBI and everybody, the government just came and got every one of his papers, and who knows what he had drawn up, plans and all that stuff. Whatever happened to it all?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, that's probably my most best-selling book, The Lost Journals of Nikola Tesla, deals with that subject, and how the FBI had actually had agents living in the very same hotel that Tesla was living in his last days, just to keep an eye on him, despite the fact that it was thought that he was broke and largely forgotten. He still was receiving sort of like a pension from the companies that he worked for earlier in life, that these companies got rich off of his development of the AC motor and the entire electrical grid system. But Tesla had gotten the interest of a number of different countries, Russia, Nazi Germany, and others. So the United States government felt it necessary to keep a very close eye on him, and as soon as he died, and probably even before, but as soon as he died, they swooped in and gathered up as much of his material as they could find. Oh, yeah.
Hey, Tim, we got to go on break. We'll be back in about 3 minutes, so if you want to get a cup of java, a cup of tea, or whatever, you're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio with Tim Swartz, me, Gary, and James Chrisbaum, who's really silent in the background. We'll be back in a couple minutes.